Has anyone ever thought that the Dragon Ball ending was lackluster, kinda sucked, or just a little bit disappointing? Well, if you share that sentiment, you're definitely not alone. Hello there, beautiful friends from around the world. I am, of course, Blackenfist. Now, Dragon Ball is a series I like a lot, but I'm also not afraid to point out that it has its flaws, and that it's a very flawed series. Anyone who tries to tell you it's a perfect series, it's got something wrong with the brain. But seriously, it's a flawed series, and I'm not afraid to point it out. I think one of those flaws is definitely the ending of Dragon Ball. The ending of the Dragon Ball is the anime. A lot of people feel it's a very anticlimactic series, and I think that the series definitely, for a lot of people, deserved more than what Toriyama actually gave us. There's a lot of problems with this series, the ending, but let's just dive right in to what made this ending a little too anticlimactic and lackluster. And one of the biggest culprits that I see a lot of people pointing out, and I would have to agree, he's one of the more obvious ones, is the character of Oob. Now, how does this sound to you guys? You have an insanely long series, right? So, when it finally comes down to the end, how does it sound like we just add some random character, we put him in there, he's the focus of the ending to this long series? How does that sound like to you guys? Have gone through all these adventures and times with these characters, but they don't receive that much focus in the ending. Instead, a lot of that focus is focused on this completely new character that is completely introduced in the end. Very end. Sounds like a freaking horrible idea, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what Toriyama did with Oob. Oob is cited as one of the biggest problems with the Dragon Ball ending, and I would have to agree on closer examination. A character that really hadn't had time with the audience, hasn't had time to grow with the audience, is now put star focused on the ending, which is a horrible idea in my point of view. If you're gonna have Oob in the ending, I think it would have been much better to have the very least reduce his role. Do not have him the focus of the entire ending. One of the worst things I think also is that in the ending, Goku was kind of a dick. A lot of people like to say Goku's a bad father, and he's, this and that, and he has his problems, don't get me wrong, Goku's, not a perfect character. But I think a lot of people overlook what he does in the ending, which I think is the biggest douchebaggery move that he did in the entire series. When he just met this kid, he abandons his friends, his family, to go with this kid to train him. Keep in mind, neglecting the fact that he could also be training his granddaughter Pan, he could also be training his son Gohan, he could also be training, hell, just about anyone of the Dragon Ball cast who I think is more deserving, okay? And would have been more interesting. Hell, I don't care if Goku went on to go and train Bulma. I think that would have been much more interesting, just because Bulma has actually been there since the beginning. Not only does he go and train Oob, he also goes and says he's going to be training with him for years to come. So that's a huge dedication. This is just bizarre in my point of view, because it conflicts with the audience. Let's be honest with ourselves, guys. Do we really care about Oob in the story? No, we don't. Who gives a fuck about Oob? Okay, I'm just gonna put it bluntly. No one cares about Oob. So I think it's very sad for us to see the main character of Dragon Ball, Goku, caring so much about Oob when the audience really doesn't care about Oob. It really has a conflicting of interests. And it also kind of makes Goku seem like a dick because he's abandoning everyone he's known throughout his whole life for this very new person that he just swapped in there and pretty much saying, guys, I know you've been hanging with me since I was, a little kid or, whatever, but, I got something to do. I'm just going to say bye-bye for right now, and I'm going to spend my time with this kid now. Kind of a dick move, in my opinion. Another thing that I think made the Dragon Ball ending suffer, and I think it's a side effect of having Oob all the spotlight, is the fact that there's no spotlight on anyone else. Sure, there's some spotlight on Goku, but not really much else. Pan gets, I guess, 1-2 moments, but that's it. We don't get to see much of Piccolo, we don't get to see much of Gohan, we don't get to see much of Bulma, we don't get to see much of Krillin, we don't get to see even much of Adele. I think that any other member of the Dragon Ball cast, anybody else, Oolong, Puar, would have been much more deserving of spotlight in the ending of Dragon Ball. You know, characters we actually, followed through to the end. No, they're just put in the back so that we can have some spotlight on, ooh, this character we don't care about. Horrible thing to do. But a guy like me who's been reading and watching for years now, eventually the thought is going to come across my head, maybe this is the way Dragon Ball should end it, or that way. And, of course, there's many ideas out there. But one thing did caught my eye. Akira Toriyama occasionally likes to draw his characters in situations that they might not actually be in, like perhaps a Western or a racing team. And one time, he drew Goku, as he calls it, Geezer Goku, a very old, wrinkled up, past his prime Goku that has seen his better days. And I think that right there makes an interesting ending. It makes a much more interesting dynamic to see a frailer version of Goku, a Goku who is not as strong as he used to be, because now there's a much bigger incentive for Goku to really pass on what he knows and pass on the fighting skills that he has acquired. I think with age, with Goku losing his strength, I think that gives a lot more meaning to him passing on his legacy because he can no longer do it. At the end of Dragon Ball as it is, Goku's still, fit, he's still healthy, he's still as strong as ever, or if not stronger than ever, so there's really no threat. He's just passing it on for future's sake. He could still be the one defending the Earth if he really had to. But a frailer version of Goku maybe couldn't. Maybe he can't do as much as he could before, so it's imperative for him to pass it on. I think setting the ending, instead of 10 years after the Buu saga, maybe it would be more like 40, 50, 60 years. Maybe seeing an older Gohan, an older Goten, an older Pan, and, definitely an older Goku. Seeing how they have developed over all these years. I think that is a much more interesting dynamic. And I think him passing on his knowledge to maybe Pan, or maybe even Pan's son or daughter, Goku seeing the birth of, his great-great-grandson or daughter, or something like that. That could have been an interesting note to end it on. And something that I think conveys a lot more of a sense of legacy and passing the torch on of Earth's protector and all that much better, instead of, maybe him still in his prime, still fit, still being able to do the job, instead of him not being able to do the job. He really does need to pass it on because he has seen his better days. Now, of course, some people might say, Goku seeing the birth of his, great-great-grandson and Pan and all that, maybe that seems very un-Dragon Ball-like, and maybe it does, but you know what? This is the ending we're talking about, where stuff where you've never seen before actually happens, or something that just really sticks with you, makes it a strong ending. And I really do think that something like that, just the image of an older Goku, makes it a strong ending. Of course, I am aware that this is an extreme what-if scenario. I'm pretty sure Toriyama would have not included that in the ballpark, but I do think that really does convey a stronger message of passing Goku's legacy on because he really needed to. Not because he kind of wanted to, but because he needed to do that. But anyway, guys, these were just my thoughts, and of course there's many other theories about how maybe it could have ended. I mean, there's practically infinite possibilities on how it could have ended instead of the official story. So maybe you guys can tell me some of the endings that you maybe have come up with, or your opinions on my thoughts. Maybe thinking that I'm a little ridiculous for suggesting Dragon Ball should have ended with, Pan giving birth. So, but anyway, guys, these were, of course, just my thoughts. And as always, guys, I'm Blackenfist, and I'm out, man.